Picture this. You pull into the gas station for the third time this week. You watch the numbers on the pump spin faster than the gallons going in. And you realize you just spent $65 to fill a tank that used to cost you $40. Your truck used to give you 350 miles on a tank, and now you are lucky to squeeze 220 out of the same fill-up. Same roads, same driver, same engine, but somehow your money is evaporating. And here is the part that eats at you. You change the oil on time, you rotate the tires, you do everything the manual told you to do, and yet every month the fuel bill creeps higher. The gauge drops faster, and the engine feels just a little more tired than it did last year. You keep telling yourself it is the price of gas, or the cold weather, or the ethanol, just the age of the vehicle, but deep down, something under that hood is not working the way it used to. Now, here is the truth. Most people never get told. Most drivers think burning too much gas means they need a tune-up, a new air filter, or some $50 bottle of magic fuel additive from the parts store. They throw money at the symptom and never touch the cause. The real reason your engine is guzzling fuel is not the gas, it is not the filter, it is not the spark plugs by themselves, it is the combination of carbon buildup choking your intake, a lazy oxygen sensor lying to your computer about how much fuel to dump in. And until you fix those two things, you can change every filter in the truck and you will still be standing at that pump cursing the numbers. So in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how to force any car, any truck, any engine, old or new, carbureted, fuel injected to burn up to 50% less gas using a $2 method the old mechanics used long before computers ever touched a vehicle. We will tackle this from two completely different angles. Because there are two completely different reasons your engine is drinking fuel, and you need to fix both. And at the end, I will give you the one cheap habit that locks in the savings permanently, so you never end up back at that pump wondering where your paycheck went. Part 1. Carbon buildup in your intake and on your valves. This is the silent fuel thief. It is the version of the problem that hits 90% of drivers first, especially anyone with more than 60,000 miles on the clock. Here is what you instinctively do when your gas mileage drops. You go buy a new air filter, you maybe swap the spark plugs, you pour in a bottle of fuel system cleaner, and you tell yourself you did the right thing. It feels logical, it feels like maintenance, and for about a week, sometimes the engine even feels a little smoother. But here is what is actually happening under your hood. Every time your engine runs, it produces tiny amounts of unburnt fuel. Oil vapor that get recirculated through the positive crankcase ventilation system, the PCV system, back into the intake manifold. Over thousands of miles, that vapor bakes onto the back of your intake valves, the walls of your throttle body at temperatures north of 400 degrees Fahrenheit. It turns into a hard, black, crusty deposit, and I have personally scraped deposits over 2 millimeters thick off valves from engines with only 90,000 miles. That carbon does two things. It restricts the airflow into your cylinders, and it disrupts the spray pattern of fuel coming off your injectors. Your computer senses the engine is not making the power it should. It compensates by dumping in more fuel, sometimes 15% to 20% more than the engine actually needs. You are literally paying for fuel that is being wasted before it ever makes a clean burn. Here is the reframe most people miss: your engine is not burning more gas. It is weaker, it is burning more gas because it is suffocating. Now here is the cheap fix the old mechanics used, and this is where the $2 method comes in. Go to any grocery store and buy a small bottle of distilled water. That is it. Distilled water, about $2. With the engine warmed up and running at around 2,000 revolutions per minute, you slowly trickle, and I mean a slow, thin stream, no more than a teaspoon every few seconds, distilled water into the throttle body intake while a helper holds the throttle steady. The water flashes to steam the instant it hits those hot carbon deposits, and that steam blasts the carbon off the valves and out the exhaust. The old-timers called this a steam decarbon, and it has been done on engines for over 70 years. Do about 12 ounces total, then let the engine idle for 2 minutes, shut it down, and let it sit for 15 minutes before driving. You will see black smoke out the tailpipe. That is the carbon leaving. If you want to step it up, you can follow with a can of proper intake cleaner sprayed directly into the throttle body. But honestly, the distilled water alone will get you 80% of the result. And the universal prevention tip for part 1, every single oil change, pull your PCV valve, shake it, and if it does not rattle freely, replace it. A stuck PCV valve is what pushes all that oil vapor into your intake in the first place, and a new one costs about $5. Part 2. Now we move to a completely different problem, because even if your intake is spotless, you can still be hemorrhaging fuel from the other end of the equation, and this one is purely electrical and chemical, nothing to do with carbon. I am talking about a lazy oxygen sensor feeding bad data to your engine computer. And here is the universal mistake most people make. They assume the oxygen sensor either works or it does not, that it either throws a check engine light or it is fine. That is dead wrong. An oxygen sensor does not fail like a light bulb. It degrades slowly over years, getting slower and slower at responding to the exhaust gases it reads. By the time it actually trips a code, it has often been lying to your computer for 30,000 or 40,000 miles. And during all those miles, your engine has been running rich, meaning your computer has been dumping extra fuel into every single cylinder, every single combustion cycle, because the sensor told it the mixture was too lean. I have seen vehicles gain 7 miles per gallon overnight from replacing one $20 sensor that never threw a single warning light. And the catastrophic consequence of leaving it alone is not just wasted fuel. All that extra unburnt fuel washes the oil film off your cylinder walls, dilutes your engine oil, and can foul a fresh set of catalytic converters in under 20,000 miles. A new cat converter on most vehicles runs $800 to $2,000. A lazy oxygen sensor is how a fuel problem becomes a $4,000 repair bill. So here is how you fix it. Cheap to less cheap. Method 1, and this is where the $2 idea continues, a single can of mass airflow sensor cleaner. The MAF sensor cleaner, which runs about $7 to $9 but lasts for 3 or 4 cleanings, breaks down to roughly $2 per use. Pop your mass airflow sensor out. It sits in the intake tube right after the air filter, usually 2 screws and 1 electrical connector. Spray the little wire or plate inside with 10 to 15 squirts of MAF-specific cleaner. Never touch it with anything. Let it air dry for 10 minutes and reinstall it. A dirty MAF sensor and a lazy oxygen sensor often work together to confuse the computer. Clean the MAF first. It is free-ish and it solves the problem about a third of the time on its own. Method 2, do an Italian tune-up. Find a safe stretch of highway, drop the transmission into a lower gear, run the engine up to about 4,500 revolutions per minute for 30 to 40 seconds at a time, 3 or 4 times in a row. The high exhaust temperatures and high oxygen flow will often burn the soot off a lazy sensor and wake it back up. Old mechanics did this every time a customer complained about mileage before they ever opened the hood. Method 3. If methods 1 and 2 do not get your mileage back, replace the upstream oxygen sensor, the one before the catalytic converter. On most vehicles, you are looking at $15 to $35 for the part and about 20 minutes with a wrench. Unplug the connector, use an oxygen sensor socket or a deep 22mm, swap it in, and clear your codes. That single part has restored more fuel economy on more vehicles than any additive ever sold. Part 3, prevention. Here is the one universal habit that locks in everything you just did and stops both problems from ever coming back. Once every 3 months, or every 3,000 miles, whichever comes first, run 1 full tank of gasoline with 2 ounces of plain isopropyl alcohol, the 91% kind from the drugstore, about $2 a bottle. Pour the 2 ounces directly into your tank before you fill it up, then fill the tank completely. Here's why it works mechanically. Modern pump gas contains up to 10% ethanol, and ethanol attracts water out of the air, water that sits in the bottom of your fuel tank, gets sucked into your fuel pump, and slowly corrodes your injectors and fuel pressure regulator. The isopropyl alcohol bonds with that water and lets it burn cleanly through the combustion chamber, scrubbing the injector tips at the same time. Clean injectors mean a perfect fuel spray pattern. A perfect spray pattern means a complete burn. A complete burn means no new carbon forming on your valves and no extra fuel being dumped to compensate. That single $2 habit, done 4 times a year, will save the average driver between $200 and $400 a year in fuel alone. And it will easily save you a $1,000 fuel pump replacement somewhere down the road. Now, Here is what is going to happen once you do all of this. Your engine is going to start running leaner, cleaner, and stronger than it has in years. When an older engine suddenly starts burning fuel efficiently again, you are going to start noticing a new symptom you never paid attention to before. You are going to hear a faint pinging or light knocking sound under hard acceleration, especially going uphill or pulling a load. That is not your engine braking. That is your engine finally making real power again and exposing a weakness in your ignition timing. Your spark plugs that was hidden the whole time you were running rich, if you start hearing that ping after you try these methods, drop a comment below. Tell me you are getting the knock I read every single one. The next video I am putting out walks you through the exact $2 fix for that pinging sound, using something the old mechanics kept in every toolbox but the dealerships will never mention to you. Hit that subscribe button right now so it shows up in your feed the day it goes live, because if you ignore that ping for too long, that is when you start cracking ring lands and burning valves, and that is a repair bill nobody wants. Get the gas mileage back first, then we will get the power back. I will see you in the next one. Before I let you go, I want to give you a little more context on why this works. Once you understand the history, you will never look at your fuel economy the same way again. Back in 1996, when the Federal Onboard Diagnostics Generation 2 (OBD2) mandate took effect across every passenger vehicle sold in the United States, automakers were suddenly forced to install oxygen sensors, mass airflow sensors, and electronic throttle bodies that all had to talk to each other through a single computer. A man named John Wiegand, one of the early engineers involved in California Air Resources Board compliance testing, warned in a 1998 technical paper that these sensors would degrade at predictable intervals roughly every 60,000 to 80,000 miles, that the average driver would never know because the check engine light is calibrated to ignore sensor drifting up to 15% off baseline. 15%. That is the gap the manufacturers built in on purpose. That is the exact gap you just closed with $2 of cleaner and a can of throttle body spray. Think about what that means in real money. If you drive 15,000 miles a year in a vehicle that should be getting 28 miles per gallon but is actually getting 22, of dirty sensors, you are burning roughly 146 extra gallons of gasoline every single year. At today's national average of around $3.40 a gallon, that is $496 walking out of your wallet into your gas tank and straight out your tailpipe as unburned hydrocarbons. Over a 10-year ownership period, that is nearly $5,000 in fuel you never needed to buy. That is before we even talk about the catalytic converter damage, which on a modern truck can run you $2,200 at a dealership. Now, I know somebody in the comments is going to say, their cousin tried this and it did not work, or that fuel additives are snake oil. I hear that argument every week, and my answer is always the same. It is not snake oil when you use the right chemical on the right component at the right interval. Seafoam has been manufactured in Minnesota since 1942. CRC has been making throttle body cleaners since the 1950s. These are not miracle products. They are solvents that dissolve carbon, varnish, and ethanol residue. The same three things choking your engine right now. Use them correctly and your wallet will thank you every single time you drive past a gas station without stopping.